Yeah, SBR Boxing. We're back, myself and Niall, and we are here in what can only be described as final prediction mode. And we are predicting heavyweight clash between, I suppose, prospect you have to describe him as Jared Anderson versus Riyad Merhy, taking place obviously in the US this weekend. Niall, thank you very much for joining me. We're going to sort of touch on a few of the themes of this fight, but I suppose and then obviously give our predictions. Before we go straight into predictions, though, and after you tell us whether you're well or not, what I'm going to do is ask you the first question, really, which is, Jared Anderson is a guy, with sorry, Joe Nancy, 16 and 0 record, 15 KOs. We've seen him obviously recently up and against Charles Martin, which is obviously the UD victory he had, which didn't go to the KO. Rare Mary last time out, surprising victory in many ways over Tony Yoka, but a man with 26 KOs in his record. But do you think over 10 rounds, so obviously both men big punches, but do you foresee any way in this fight that this fight might go the full 10 rounds, or do you think it's going to end prematurely for one of these men?
It's a good question because I'd say no. I'd say it would be a stoppage, without kind of giving away my prediction for this. But I think we both agree which way this one's probably going to go. But you mentioned there Anderson did go the distance with Charles Martin, who is Charles Martin better than Riyad Mary? There's an argument to be made. No, probably not. So he's went the distance with a worse fighter than Mary, but I just think two big punchers. I think it can't go the distance there. I would be very surprised if it went the distance, especially when you're dealing with someone like Jared Anderson, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think it's the judges won't be needed on this one, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna agree with you. I don't. Well, I think there's a bit of intrigue. Like, it could potentially both of them are good fighters, but like you say, Mary's only been stopped once before as well, and that was against Guma Marion. Anderson obviously has never been stopped, so maybe there is a potential if you're a betting person to leap on a decent odd service going the full 10 rounds. But the question before we finish on predictions, I'm going to ask you is: we mentioned some of the names, the most of them have fought there. I suppose if you look at Mary, obviously he's fought, Yoka, he's got Kevin Lorena, they're the ones that sort of stand out really on his record. Anderson, you've got Charles Martin, you've got Jerry Forrest, the names that sort of stand out really there. Do you think that victory for either man on Saturday will be their best win on their CV, or do you think they've actually already come through potentially some harder opponents out of some of those names that I've mentioned?
I think it would be 100% for either man. It'd be the best win on their CV. Mary, of course, beat Tony Oka, which is Tony Oka is a really he is a good win, but he's been beaten a couple of times before. Tony Oka's on a real sharp decline in his own professional career. Carlos Takam beat him, Martin Piccoli beat him. So. Yoka is on the downturn big time, from his amateur career. But it's still a good win, for someone like Ryad Merhy to have on his CV. But yeah, Anderson is beating those I don't know, the gatekeepers, or those kind of tough operators like Charles Martin, Jerry Forrest, who can give you a tricky night's work, but they're never going to beat the top guys. So I do think. Yeah, I have to say, if Anderson wins this, it would be the best win on his CV, with Mary coming off the momentum of the Oka win, and yeah, of course, if Mary was to cause a big upset here, it'd be one of the shocks of the year if Mary beat Jared Anderson here. It really would. So it'd be one of the biggest wins in the heavyweight division if he was to pull off the upset here, definitely.
No, I agree. I think both of them would be the best victory on each other's records, no matter who wins. But no, you mentioned it there, massive upset possibly if Jared Anderson were to lose. So we're going to go into predictions now, and I'll finish with one final question to conclude the video. But firstly, yeah, let's go straight to it, Niall. So, like I said, both big punches. You mentioned that you don't think it's going to go 12 rounds. You mentioned that Anderson is the favourite. Are you saying Anderson KO, Niall? And if so, what round are you going with, please?
I am saying Anderson KO. I love Jared Anderson, to be honest with you. I think he's always kind of one to look out for. I'm a big fan of his, between his personality and his style. I think he's well rounded. He can box. He's fast, and he's a big puncher. So I think Anderson's going to the top. To be honest with you, the heavyweight division, whether that be a time frame on that, I don't know, but I think he is going to the top, and he'll stop Riyad Mary. So I'm going to stop Mary in seven round KO for Jared Anderson here. But I think Merhy could cause him a few problems early with his kind of technical style, but he'll break him down. As I mentioned, too well rounded for him, too fast, can box, can punch. Yeah, another stoppage win for big baby Jared Anderson for me on his rise to the top.
You know, I'm going to I'm tempted. I'm actually, well, I've talked myself into this. Obviously, with this video's been going on, I'm actually considering maybe Anderson on points. And the reason I'm going to say that is, you know, it might be completely wild, but the reason I'm saying this is, you know, I just feel like both men carry obviously obvious dangers. Both men carry power, and I wonder whether that will influence the style of the fight somewhat. Whether they're both kind of a bit more cautious. Maybe that can go. If there's a stoppage, maybe it can go late. But I also favour Jared Anderson. I think of Jared Anderson, obviously the money and the prospect that he is. If it comes to the judges, Anderson points will be the way that it's going to go. And someone in favour Jared Anderson on points. But no, last question. You mentioned that this is quite tricky actually in some ways because Jared Anderson's ranking is high. So I think, you know, he's 4 to sort of 7 in different sort of governing bodies. I was wondering if he wins this fight, I mean, who do you put him in with essentially? Because the names that are sort of above him on those rankings, you've obviously got the Furies, the Joshua's, U6. They're obviously, you'd imagine, going to be tied up. They're not going to fight necessarily. But then you've got, you know, Parker, Hergovic, Zhang, people like Sanchez kicking around, Dubois, Wardley. Like, how would you match Jared Anderson? He'd only be 17 fights into his pro career. He's still very, very young. Do you put him in with someone sort of around the sort of top 10 level maybe and see what happens, or do you kind of try and expedite him even further? How are you matching him over the next year if he wins on Saturday?
It's a tricky question, you know, and I was thinking of this before we kind of came on today. Jared Anderson, I think it has to be a top 10. You know, I think it has to be at this stage a top 10 opponent next in the world. And I was thinking, I think he beats a lot of the top 10. You know, I think outside of the champions and maybe Anthony Joshua, who knows, I think he'd beat a lot of them. You know, I think the likes of, say, a Dillian White, I think he beat Dillian White now, to be honest with you. I do. I really do. And there's a name, there's a name that I'll throw out as well that I would like to see him in with next, and I think he beats as well, Andy Ruiz. I'd say Jared Anderson and Andy Ruiz next if he beats Ryad Merhy, and I think Jared Anderson will beat Andy Ruiz now, to be honest with you. I really do. Maybe there's the likes of Luis Ortiz as well, who I think he'd smoke Ortiz, but I'd love to see Jared Anderson versus Andy Ruiz, and I'd pick Anderson to get the win there, to be honest with you. But I think it has to be a high ranking kind of top 10 opponent.
You know what, Niall? What my thoughts are on Dillian White, and all I heard when you were talking through that was Anderson stops White, and then everything else just played an internet blur for me. And that could be the tagline for this video, to be honest with you. You know, I thank you for that. Gave me a lot of joy in hearing that comment. I agree with you. I think he beats Dillian White, and I also agree. I think you need to match him carefully, but someone in the top 10, like a bit of a step up. Obviously, the champions, I still think, are obviously beyond that necessarily. There's not necessarily need to go that fast. There's someone around the sort of top 10 little marquee name they can sort of get on his record as well, and he's moving in the right direction. But Niall, thank you very much for joining me, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching. Those are our final predictions for Anderson Merhy taking place on Saturday night in the US. Check out the channel again for obviously all the stuff we've got. We've got big fight breakdowns, we've got reviews, previews, all that stuff, interviews with fighters, fight week content. There's a whole sort of host and plethora of information and you know, interview, etc., and feature on the channel. Let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with us, how you see this fight playing out. And also check out the other videos. You know, we've got prediction videos this week. Niall, thank you for joining me. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.